Well, this is Morning Express that you're at, and we're glad that you're here with us. Do keep it right here as we continue to talk about in-laws. And, well, would love to hear from you. And remember, the phone lines are going to be open. They'll be displayed on your screen. Would like to hear what your experiences are. Maybe yours is not a story of in-laws that are evil. Maybe it is. I would still like to hear from you. And joining me in the studio is Ken Oko, who is a sociologist. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And Chris Hart, who's a relationship expert. And let me start first of all with you, Ken, on how we make the initial contact with our in-laws. How important is that, and how should it be?
From a sociologist's perspective, we talk about legitimizing marriage before you do the actual thing.
Yes.
And part of this legitimacy includes what we call social intimacy. Social intimacy includes visitation. Now that visitation, when the girl is finally comfortable with you, then she allows you to visit, and she allows those guys to visit. And that's how the initial contact is made. And as a prospective spouse, you start analyzing them from that time, because that time everybody is all smiley and, you know, trying to pretend that they like you because their daughter has not given them a choice. On your side, she meets your in-laws usually very early in dating. If you're a confident boy, your father and mother have brought you up well, then what you do is they tell you, when you're dating someone and you think it's something that makes sense, let us know who it is. So it could be just a dating process, but eventually it could turn out to be the in-laws. But for the girls, they're usually very cautious. But by the time they're doing that, that visitation is already leading to the process. But the boys could introduce 10 girls to their mother.
And the story goes on. Chris, given that your relationship obviously kicks off with your potential spouse, male or female, then later on comes in, I don't want to call it baggage, but comes in the relatives who now you have to learn how to relate to. But the initial relationship really is between the two.
Absolutely.
Yes. So how should one tread, knowing that this is the person I'm going to live with the rest of my life, but they belong to a community?
Yeah, I think your first decision is whether that person has really grown up. You know, when you live in your family of origin as a child, you're a child and you have parents, and as you grow up to be an adult, there comes a point where you start treating them like adults. Now, nobody should think about getting married to somebody who hasn't learned to treat their parents, their family, as adults. If they still have a child relationship with their mother, for example, you as the incoming spouse are going to have a really rough time.
How do you determine if they still have a parent-child relationship?
Well, you watch them dealing with everybody to begin with. You start to say, is this a really mature, socially confident person? Then you watch them dealing with the minor relatives, you know, the cousins and all that sort of thing. How do they interact with their family? And then gradually, as you climb the pyramid towards the mother-in-law, you're asking the question all the time, how are they interacting with these people? Are they treating them like equals? Are they treating them respectfully but determinedly, able to say no, for example?
When they need to.
Yeah, because what you really want is this. You want to be married to somebody who will put you first, ahead of the mother, the father, the in-laws. And if you can see that that is not going to happen, then you're in for a life of misery. Now, maybe that's okay. Maybe you're going to cope with that, but know what you're getting into, because it's not nice.
Okay, Ken, given how we're socialized and brought up with the African culture, you'll always find your dad looks at you as a child. I mean, that doesn't change regardless of whether you're 20 or 40. Is it possible for one to actually now break away from this to a point where you are now independent fully? And how does one do that? Or how does one do that?
You know, just the other day I was sending something to my daughter, who is quite grown up, that a daughter is never too old to lean on the daddy's shoulder and cry. You know, and even if you're 50, you know, your daddy still calls you with that name he used to call you, Toto, or whatever it is. You know, so that hardly changes, except that you as a person, you mark your boundaries. And when you get home, you tell daddy, hey, now I have a wife here, I'm a man like you. You know, but those are conversations we hardly ever have in the African culture. The thing with going to the opposite, you see what he's calling the family of origination, which is where you're born, you hook up with a new family which now becomes the family of orientation. And for some reason they expect you to be such a perfect person because your family of origination knows you. They know the devil you are. They know the witch you are if you're a woman. But the family of orientation has already been given that picture that, this man is the best I could find. So then they expect the best of you. And sometimes it comes with a lot of baggage, because then you have to keep defining yourself in this perfect circumstance. Once you say, I do, and you're at the wedding and you're promising the daddy everything on earth, I'll never touch her, she has no scar, I'll not put one on her. Then when you get home, she turns out to be such a witch, then you have a problem. Yeah, so the family of orientation usually looks like it's presenting a heavier burden on you than the family of origination, because your daddy knows you. They brought you up, your mother knows you better than anybody else, so they'll probably forgive your flaws. But the other family cannot do that. The minute something happens to their daughter, they come at you, and that's where the problem is.
Okay, Chris, by the time you are agreeing that, we're going ahead with this to get married, whatever that means, whether it just means to stay together and, have children, or to walk down the aisle, by the time the two, let's call it nuclear here, the
Yes.
two agree that that's what they're going to do, you've probably impressed him or her. How important is it now to bring in the rest of the family? Because we may not genuinely, we may not just get along with the rest, but we get along with you, and that may cause a strain now between the two.
Yeah, I actually wouldn't enter a marriage with somebody where clearly they did not get along with their family. If I found myself dating somebody where it's quite clear they've got poisonous relationships with their family, or the family is fractious, or clearly I'm getting into a very difficult situation. So it would be part of my decision making to watch how the family functions. Is this a functional family that I am joining? And if the answer is no, well then, in the same way that I wouldn't want to marry somebody who didn't know how to manage money, or who obviously had a loose lifestyle.
So are you saying you wouldn't get married or marry somebody who's in a dysfunctional family?
Yeah, I would say that.
That would be very strong, because there's some, it may be dysfunctional not because of their fault, but they're just unique families.
It's a judgment. You have to decide what you mean by dysfunctional. But if you clearly are getting into a family where half of them are criminals and the other half beat each other up every Friday night, I mean, why saddle yourself with that sort of situation?
But actually, part of what Chris is also saying is that when you go home with this girl, like for the first time, the visitation, and then her mother tries to suggest something and she gets up and says, Mom, no, you can't say that, then you know you have a problem, you yourself, because if she can do that to her mother, who are you?
Yeah, exactly. It'll be you next.
Yeah.
Making a decision to marry somebody is not a one-dimensional thing, is it? You don't just choose a girl because she's pretty. You choose a girl because she's got a whole set of values and behaviors that make sense. The same in reverse. A girl choosing a man wants a man who knows how to conduct himself in society. And that includes how he interacts with his family, and how my girlfriend interacts with her family, and how they function. And I want to go into a new family, which is clearly working.
Okay, just a quick reminder, today we're talking about in-laws, and we'd love to hear from you as well. Maybe share your experiences, maybe you have a question, maybe you have a comment. The phone lines are open, or you can also tweet, and that's at Michael G. Gitonga. That's a Twitter handle, at Michael G. Gitonga, or at KTN Kenya. Now, Ken, it's not always that a family is dysfunctional, but you might find sometimes, let me call it one that has so much love. You'll find maybe a man who's very close to the mom. And when he gets married, she interferes. As far as the wife is concerned, the man does not see it as interference. He sees it as, my mom, she's always been there for me. She's always brought me up. So she's not interfering, she's just helping me. But the wife feels, listen, you need to put your foot down. How does one handle that?
On either side of the marital couple, the spouses, we again, in sociological terms, we look at in-laws by gender. The mother-in-law is universally a problem. And I think they are socialized to believe that they ought to stamp their feet on you, The father-in-laws are usually pretty gentle, and he gives an advisory every time he needs to, but he doesn't really stamp his foot in that marriage. But the mother-in-law will probably come and sit in between you and watch TV with you and see how you react to the telly. So when you look at either way, if it's the husband whose mom is a problem, then that girl will be in a nightmare for that marriage, because you have this matriarch mentality If you look at it by region also, there are some regions where the mother is a very powerful woman and she really takes care of her son and she'll never let go. Even if the son wants to buy a car, the son has to consult the mom. So the wife is like, what are you doing? You know, that's him and his mother, and there's very little you do about it. As a wife, you'd be best advised to work with it. Because the minute you try to come in between them, it's not even the mom who will rebel, it's probably the boy, the son, who will rebel.
But you see, I would go back to what I said a few moments ago.
Yeah.
If I saw I was getting into a family where that was the relationship, I think I'd be wondering
You step
about
aside.
For your own, for your
Yeah, I said at the beginning, you have to choose a spouse who has a grown-up relationship, not a parent-child relationship with their parents. And it's dangerous to get into a situation like that. He's absolutely right. There are lots of mothers who behave like that, and it is, and it's not politically correct to say this, but there is a difference between men and women in this. You see that women have a tendency to be controlling in the house. You notice this in almost every relationship. It's the woman who wants to control what brand of sugar you buy, how you put the nappy on the child.
even where you park.
Yeah, everything. And of course that comes over in the end, is she thinks she ought to run the new family as well. And yes, mothers-in-law can be very controlling.
All right,
Don't go there.
we will go there a little later on, but we'll take a call from Rose. Rose in Bondo, thank you for calling to your question or comment.
Okay, good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Morning.
Yes, I have an experience with my in-laws. I'm married to our firstborn. And so the sisters, most of them are actually my age, and it's always crazy with them. And there's even one of them who lives outside Kenya, and she really hates me before she even met me because of the fact that when we disagree with the small sisters, they feed him with all sorts of information. And my husband doesn't make it easier, because when there's the disagreement, he puts you down together, and it's like you're in a meeting and he's always siding with his people. So I'm in a dilemma, kind of. How can I deal with this? Though my father-in-law is really a good one. He's never for the ladies. He says he knows the ladies, but my husband doesn't make it easier.
Okay, what about your mother-in-law?
My mother-in-law is late, so I only have a father-in-law.
All right. All right, thank you, Rose. We also have Khalifa in Nairobi. Khalifa, thank you for calling to your comment or question.
Hello?
Yes, hello. Khalifa, we can hear you. Go right
You're
ahead.
always calling my name wrong. It's Hanifa.
I'm sorry. Hanifa. I'm sorry. Director, I will skin you for that. Hanifa.
Okay, okay.
Yes, go
Okay,
ahead.
Hanifa here is saying today, I have met in-laws from hell. and that is the mother-in-law and also the sister and brothers-in-law. They have made me wounded. Like up to now, it's been 11 years with my daughter, and I've never been married again because of the pain that I went through.
What happened?
I think I married a mama's boy, and mamas where they are controlling their boys in everything. This is a boy a man who cannot even make a decision. Anything that you decide together, he has to go to the mother and ask, and it's the mother to decide, we can go through with this or not. Even when you want to buy Pampers, she has to say, yeah, we can buy, or she can use the napkins. So me, I have gone through a lot with the in-laws, and it's been 11 years. I'm living alone with my daughter. It's so painful. The sisters and brothers-in-law are the same, and I would tell people who are out there who are not yet married, it's a painful situation that